Scott, help me out here. I have not mentioned this story once, but I know in political circles this is taking up a lot of oxygen. This has to do, of course, with, in the case of the Liberals, their minister, whose name I'm going to mispronounce. So this is Gary Anandasangari. This minister, the public safety minister, and the calls for him to resign, just by virtue of him saying he wasn't a big fan of the program. What happened here?
Here's what happened, and I'll just say in advance, in case anybody should hear me repeat this story and think that I'm like somehow endorsing it. It's a strange story, man. Okay, so the strange story is this: he's knocking around on the weekend or a few days ago, whatever, in his riding, knocking on doors, meeting constituents. A constituent that he's known for a long time, who's strong, pro-gun, surreptitiously records their conversation, which is legal. Right? Like, I can record my conversation with you without telling you. So he's having a conversation. This person's giving them the gears about the gun buyback program, right? You turn in your gun. I won't ask you any questions about where you got it or whether it was legal, all that kind of stuff. And this person is going, I think this is BS. I hate this program. It doesn't work. It won't fight crime, all that kind of stuff. And the minister, and I'm paraphrasing, so I could be getting it. I could be characterizing it worse than it was. He more or less goes, listen, man, like, I get it. It's politics. A lot of it has to do with Quebec. Gun lobby's very strong in Quebec. But look, we're going to work our way through this thing. And you know what? Like, it's not like the cops are knocking on your door and, searching through your closet. So, like, you can choose to comply or not comply. You can turn your guns in or not. And so this has been taken as evidence. He didn't deny it. It's been taken evidence as A, very poor judgment on the part of the minister. B, a kind of a concession that implicitly that the program doesn't work and it's all about politics, and maybe C is a part of that really it's about pandering to parts of the country where this issue is more supported than others, i.e. Quebec.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story. He's under pressure. The Prime Minister has said, listen, I'm backing this guy, but it's a bad look and he's having a tough time. And he hasn't really shown himself to be the most adept minister. I think he's been the source of some unfair criticism because he is a Tamil. He's from Sri Lanka and, he has a Sri Lankan background. And so some people have said, well, you have to deal with Tamil tigers and those, that kind of issue. And so he's, screened on certain issues as public safety minister. So there's been some controversy before, fair or unfair. And now he finds himself under pressure. And it's a great punching bag for the Conservatives because they hate that flippin' buyback program to begin with. So it's got them standing on their feet in the House of Commons and looks messy.
Does he become a sacrificial lamb here, do you think, or not?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if he were to be dumped, would he be a sacrificial lamb, or would it just be, hey, man, you got to do your job better? Will he stick with him because, he was just trying to get through a tough conversation? I should mention the tape was released by, the gun lobby, so they took it and politicized it. That doesn't obviate the fact that he said those things.
Okay.
My guess is he's on thin ice. The Prime Minister will probably stick with him. He doesn't really want, in the first month or so of his government being back in the Commons, to lose a minister. You just don't want to. And so my guess is if nothing new occurs, he'll hang with them. Some people are talking about whether there'll be a shuffle in the new year, and if so, would that make him the most vulnerable minister? So, I mean, my experience, like I think back to my days with Paul Martin, Mr. Chrétien, if you had a weak minister and you felt you needed to move him, you'd do everything you could to hang on to him until it was part of a broader shuffle, so you didn't have to confess a complete mistake.
Fair enough. All right, let me get to this other story, which, again, I've not heard a whole lot about. So it turns out banking information, this is not just Mark Carney, right? I think there are a couple of others involved in here as well. Apparently, accessed by an RBC employee as part of a criminal plot. What's this about?
Look, don't ask me, man. It's a strange story. So RBC has some guy, like we can't talk about individual employees and HR and legal reasons and all that. But basically what they have said is this guy got sacked because their controls, careful controls in terms of privacy and so forth, alerted them to the fact that this guy he accessed Mark Carney's banking information. He accessed Justin Trudeau's. Some suggestion that he'd done it for others. And I think, don't take me to church on this, but I think the guy was getting $5,000 a pop for snooping through this info and maybe passing it on to, whoever it was that was commissioning him. So, it's weird. It's not like it's not a threat of, physical intimidation. It's not that kind of story, but it's like somebody's, who is the person out there who says, get me Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney's bank accounts? I want to go through it. Like, what kind of dirty job, what kind of dirty ops is going on there? Somebody wants to see, oh, look, they're, they spend $5,000 every 6 months on flowers. They must have a mistress, they're sending, like, I don't know. I'm making up crap here, just to be clear, right? But like, what are they looking for, right? So, I mean, my bank account would show debts and constant bar bills, and after that, I don't think there would be anything interesting.
Wow, that's good to know. By the way, you said 5,000. I had heard he was getting $500 a pop, not 5,000.
Maybe I've got a zero wrong there. I mean,
for 5,000, it's just saying.
Hell, you would do it, right? Who could say no?
I'd consider asking you if you and I could do it. All right, let me go to the next story here, which is I want to get your take on Jimmy Kimmel last night. Half the world was watching, at least the ones who were able to last night, and just to take on what you thought from what you heard, what you saw.
So Kimmel said what I thought he would say. I thought that it was important that he clarified that he wasn't trying to. He wasn't trying to exploit for laughs or for political purposes the death of Charlie Kirk. I thought that he was pretty emotional on that, particularly when he spoke of Kirk's wife. And then he said the things that you would expect him to say, which is, the president is, really weaponizing his office. And I think that's true. And he's trying to dictate to networks who they can put on and what voices can be heard. And he's trying to silence dissent and all of that. But I think there's something more interesting that's gotten looked over a little bit, because then the president, of course, went on Truth Social and attacked ABC and said, I got money out of it before, I'm coming for you again. So he's doubling down. There's no tolerance of voices that disagree with him. Those are just people that are, I guess future prisoners. Is that how it's going to go in the United States of these America? But Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, I think one thing that got underplayed is he did put Kimmel back on air. And he is taking grief. Those conservative affiliates that don't want to air it, they're giving him a hard time. The president's going to be vindictive. But in this world where for 6 months, no one has stood up to Trump. No one on the world stage as he bats people around. No one in his own country, the Democrats, the judges, the Congress, no one in his own party, no one effectively in another party has stood up and said enough is enough. Well, Bob Iger is in charge of Disney. He sits on a $200 billion corporation, and at least he finally, even if it took him 5 days, came to the decision, presumably, I can't handle this anymore. And I know I'm buying more grief by doing it. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that Bob Iger being shamed into this position may create a precedent for others, where people start to say, you know what, it is time to draw lines. It is time to say no to this guy. It is time to say that he cannot just bully and abuse his office to get whatever he wants and dictate every dimension of life and to ignore rules, norms, and the law. It's not right, and somebody has to say, it's the United States, for Pete's sake. It's supposed to be the cradle of democratic principles. And here we are. Now we're all in the hands of a media studio CEO. He may be our best last hope. It's a hell of a thing.
Scott Reid over at CTV. Scott, thanks so much. Appreciate it today.
Seasoned gamer or just video game curious? This Week in Gaming is the podcast for you. We break down the latest in the world of video games, from basics to beyond. The hottest gaming news, insight, and industry leaders and more, weekly. Join me, Naomi Kyle, and stay ahead of the game with all the latest updates, even if you're a total newbie. Stream This Week in Gaming on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.